So today I'm talking about, the title of my talk is Willpower or Spiritual Power of Will? Which is it? Who here has made a New Year's resolution that within a few weeks it was down the tubes? Yeah. Right, hours, exactly. Anyone want to guess what the number one reason is? People say, why? They don't have the willpower. They don't have the willpower. So I thought that was really interesting. You know, we have two sides of us, right? That part of us that wants to do really well and do the right thing and do good. And then there's that other part, right? There's the Fitbit part. And there's the Ben and Jerry's part, right? We all have it, right? I'm not the only one. So we're studying the 12 powers. And Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, he put forth the 12 powers. And the idea is that there are 12 different aspects within each and every one of us that align with the apostles. And we've already gone through the last 7 or 8 months. We've gone through faith and strength and love and wisdom, imagination, understanding, and power. And now today we're going to talk about the power of will, willingness to be open, to receive, to meld, and willpower, which is what we need to carry it through, the action. So it can't be a choice, spiritual power of will or willpower. It is both together. We need them both. It's interesting because it's where the spiritual power of will is actually an executive power because it brings together our spiritual side and our human side. The spiritual side is the part of the desire, and the human side is the walking, the action that we take. Spiritual will is the executive faculty of the mind and carries out the edicts of the I am. It moves to action all the other faculties of mind. It is the ability to choose, decide, command, direct, and determine. It is found in the frontal lobe of the brain along with the power of understanding and imagination because they all work together. And it is the color silver. And I thought it was amazing that you used Matthew because Matthew is the apostle, that this was the symbolism of it. And I did my whole talk, and not in any of the books and not in any of the other speakers that I listened to, talked about why Matthew. So I'm like, I needed to know why. So I went to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, and Matthew was a tax collector. Matthew would go to people and take their money, get their money from them. And he withdrew from his material ambitions to be with Jesus. He decided, I'm going to let all of that go and walk with this teacher. Because Jesus promised him he will not need or want for anything, right? And not to worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will bring its own blessings. Just be here now, not even to worry about it, to just trust. Trust Jesus, trust God, trust that power within us to choose what is in our highest good. So many of us we believe our will is to choose those things that bring us stuff in the world. And with the regeneration of the spiritual will, it's converted and is taught by prayer and meditation how to stabilize the universal substance, how to stabilize that which comes to us. Under spiritual law, the will becomes the producer instead of the parasite. I loved that when I read it. Our will becomes the producer because we're going within to our heart to find out what is both my will and God's will. When we drop into our heart, that's where we get that connection. That's how we know. It's not like, well, I'll get into that in a minute. So, I don't want to get ahead of myself. And you know, religion and spiritual communities all over talk about this. There's a story about a Native American grandfather talking to his grandson about the wolves in his mind and how someday he's going to realize there's a wolf that's going to say to him, revenge, get them back, fight. And then there's going to be another wolf in his head that says, find peace and harmony and have compassion and love. And so the grandson looks at his grandfather and says, Grandpa, who's going to win? And the grandfather, the wise old man, says, the one that you feed. The one that you feed. The thoughts that you give over to are the ones that win. So are we giving over to our egoic thoughts that want stuff? Are we giving over to our higher self that will probably ultimately get stuff, but fulfills a need that's only not only making us happy, but is good for everybody? We always have an opportunity to choose. You know, we may decide that I want to bump up my spiritual practice. I want to pray more. I want to meditate more. I want to journal. Wake up. You get going with your day. The day gets going with you. The end of the day comes. You're depleted. And you realize you forgot to do your spiritual practice. And then sometimes some of us just add on to it and start beating ourselves up because we didn't do what we said we were going to do, right? And what I've learned through this process is if we rely on our personal willpower or willfulness, it becomes a handicap. The point of improving or increasing or bumping up our spiritual practice is to go in first and find out what that is for you. Because when you find out what's the motivation for it and what that is in alignment with you and that higher part of you, it becomes easier to have the willpower to do it. It doesn't come from that willful place. It comes from a place of knowing and trusting and wanting to do it. I began meditating when I was 18 years old. I started with something called TM, Transcendental Meditation. It lasted about 3 months. And that was it. I was done. It just relaxed me too much. I was too mellow. And I said, this is just, forget it. 18 years old, I needed all the energy. And then I had to do it as soon as I got up in the morning. Like, are you kidding me? I had so much energy that I would get up dancing. I did not want to stop and meditate. So I put it down. Then about in my 20s again, I tried it. Didn't work. In my 30s again, I tried it. Now I'm in 12-step programs. And it helped a little bit because there's a step there that says you're supposed to pray and meditate. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stick with it because at least I stuck to going to my meetings. It didn't last. And then about, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, Sean suggested that we start meditating 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes a day. He said, and it'll help you find that peace. So I did. And the difference was, at that point in my life, that's what I was being called to do, to find that peace within me. I wanted to get closer to God. And this was the way that was helping me do it, at 5 minutes at a time. And I was so grateful. And I've stuck to it now. It's 7 years. And I've been meditating every day. That's the longest span. And I can't imagine my day and my life without meditating every day. When I was younger, I said, okay, what is it? What is it, in reflecting back? Was it God telling me, get busy, go out there and do? No, it didn't work because back then I wanted to meditate because I wanted to be able to say I was a meditator. Everybody else was doing it. I knew, because I did yoga, I should meditate. Yes.
Just to clarify, make sure I'm following you 100%.
Sure.
So you do it every day, twice a day for about 5 minutes. So are you talking about TM or a different form of meditation?
No, it's not TM at all.
Okay.
It's just whatever feels right for me in that day. Okay. Some days it's 5 minutes, some days it's 20 minutes. Some days it's twice a day, not every day.
Okay.
So every day at least once a day. And it works for me. So it was me who thought. I had that thought that if I got busy and I was productive and I was doing all this stuff, I was going to feel worthy. I was going to feel fulfilled. I was going to feel loved. And it was the opposite. It was stop doing and just be so that I could feel all that. Be and go in. I found out when I stopped and I went in, my will and God's will were the same. To be still and know that I am God. To know that I'm good, that I am worthy, and that I am loved. I don't know if you ever heard of the expression, don't just sit there, do something. But there's another expression that is, don't just do something, sit there. And that's what I do now. I do my best to not react, to go within, find out what is not only in my highest good, but the highest good of everybody involved. So ask yourself, what is my heart's desire? Because our heart space, that's where God is, right? That's where love is. That's where we connect to that part of ourselves. And once we do that, divine ideas come. Desires come. Insights come. So it's a simple practice. Stop, breathe a moment, and be still. The spiritual power of will is an innate knowing to do good, and not just for me, or not just for you, but for all. And willpower is the action that makes it happen. The power of will is both a deep surrender, giving over, melding into oneness, and then to put feet to it. This power is the embodiment of both divine and human aspects of who we are, the wholeness of who we are. So, choose to be happy, right? Choose to be prosperous, but keep your eye on the prize. And what's the prize? It's not just about me. The prize is about being in service and holding that space of what is the best for everybody involved. That is the prize, because when I do that, and probably when you do that, you're going to feel that joy and that fulfillment. Scripture, Matthew 6:10, says, "Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And, oh no. Here it is. In Luke 22:42, in the Garden of Gethsemane. I don't know and everything. Not my will, but yours be done. Both of these Bible verses are ripe for interpretation that there is a God being outside of each of us that is in charge of everything that happens and does not happen. But thinking of God not as a supernatural being, but as a one power and a one mind, underlying and throughout all that is, would change the meaning of Jesus' words. When we hear your will on earth as it is in heaven, we must ask, what is heaven? What could be the universal heavenly will? Heaven represents the unified field, the invisible space in which all things are possible. So how do we enter the heavenly space? How do we get into that state?
Go within.
Prayer and meditation. Yeah, that's it. That's when we become one with all that is. And so when we become one with all that is, that's when we get information. That's when the divine ideas come. And that's the fishes in the ocean, that there are multitudes of them. There's so much prosperity and abundance, we can't even number it. When we pray, meditate, and focus upon possibilities, we are in the visionary state of being in which we align with our divine identity or our Christ consciousness. In this awareness, our will is the will. Infinite love, ever-present wisdom, and all that is good prevailing. God is the one mind and power throughout the cosmos, is eternal life, infinite love, ever-present wisdom, and all spiritual power. That's it. Simple but not easy. So carrying this philosophy through to Jesus' heart-wrenching Garden of Gethsemane realization, Jesus recognized that his human will, which is normally our human will, is to save ourselves from the trouble ahead, right? He was in there to gain his power and to be silent and to go within, because what was coming next? The crucifixion. That's what he was getting ready for. So he held in mind, however, a higher power, a sense of purpose as a Jewish teacher with a universal message about the law of love overriding religious law. Jesus' words, "But yours be done," marked his acquiescence to his higher purpose, his Christ consciousness, which was more important than his human safety. When and where have you perceived yourself to be at a crossroads between self-serving personal desires and your grander sense of purpose? I know for me, it's been on this journey to become a minister, and it keeps rearing its little head. You know, initially I was sobbing in Sean's office like, no, this can't be. And then once I said yes, it became joyful and easy, and everything in my life really started to flow. And then more recently, in school again, this last time, I'm preparing to go back in November so that I become a licensed Unity teacher, but I also found out that it's another 3 to 6 years of schooling to become a minister. You know, I'm like, really? Really? Somehow I forgot that. I don't know, but then I said, okay, just one day at a time, one step at a time, one class at a time. Because if I try to go against that, when I already know it's a calling, when I've already gone in and it's my heart's desire to become a minister, I can't stop now because I don't want to, right? I mean, I may not like the idea of having to go to school, but actually as I do it, every class I take, I love. It just keeps unfolding more and more for me. So think about the choices that you make every day. We make so many choices, and this too is our power of will. To get out of bed, what to wear, what to have for breakfast, how much water to drink, whether I'm going to say my prayers now or later. All of these things are choices in the power of will. The problem comes when we make important choices the same way we decide to eat what we eat for breakfast, and rather default to that way rather than setting an intention and going within and asking for guidance. Imagine how powerful your life could be if you called on your most elevated level of consciousness to make important choices in life. This is what the ability or faculty or power of will is all about. It is also, the power of will is free. We have free will, right? This is sometimes where we get in trouble. It is a gift, and it takes courage to use our free will. It takes responsibility, which is maybe why our Unity churches are not filled to overflowing. But we keep bringing the message and take it in to more and more people who are willing to take responsibility for their own spiritual journey. More people realizing it's not so bad to have some charge of my life, to take responsibility and no longer be a victim to the things that happen in life, to be the center of that life working in partnership with Spirit. That's what we do here. To move through life in a direction and make known to the world the very essence of God by our actions, by our will, by our willpower, and by our willingness. So sometimes we wonder why people make decisions that hurt others. Well, we must stop and ask ourselves, are we making choices that align with the divine or are short-term and aligned with the ego? If we keep making choices from fear and aligned with the ego, it's not enough. I'm not enough. And I'm compelled to ask, how is that working? How is that working? Most say not so great. So maybe we need to try another way. So take a moment before you make a decision. Like, for example, we have an expanded choir coming up for Easter. And next week is our first choir practice for that. And if you're called, or if there's a little thought in your mind that maybe you want to do this, go within. This is your homework for the week, and I'll remind you at the end of the talk. Go within and ask yourself, is this mine to do? Because if it is, and you're up here, it's going to be the highest good for all involved. If it's not, then the highest good for all involved is that you're out there in the audience sharing it. But this is a great opportunity to use your power of will and choice and allow it to serve you and to serve this community. Recently, I called Unity Village. Oh, this was a hoot. So I called Unity Village to make reservations at the hotel at the village for November, because we have our SDS. And what that is skills demonstration seminar. The first day is a test, 500 questions or something. The second day, we each have to teach a class, half-hour class, to a board of teachers. And then the third day, we have to stand in front of a panel and they're going to throw questions at us. So it's kind of intense. And there's only 12 of us, anywhere from 6 to 12. So I'm like, I'm going to get a room at the hotel at the Village because I do not want to be schlepping back and forth to a hotel. I don't want to have to get a car. When you're at the hotel at the Village, you walk right into classes and everything. So I call, and the woman on the other end says, I'm sorry, we're booked for that week. Well, I freaked out. I'm like, what do you mean? It's November. We're in February now. Da, da, da. I said, I can't believe that Unity did not hold some rooms for us. I was appalled. And then I heard this voice that said, are you willing for peace and harmony? Are you willing for the highest good of those? And I didn't have to say a word after that. Next thing she comes up with is, let me check the Fillmore Manor. Now, the Fillmore Manor is the Fillmore's house that they recently, within the last year, have converted to an Airbnb. Wow. And when I was down there last time, we were checking it out or walking around. It's beautiful from the outside, but we had never seen the inside. And she comes back on the phone and she says, it's available and it sleeps 10. I'm like, oh, okay. How much is it a night? And it's like $300 a night, but we get a discount because we're Unity students. I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you. And I put an email out to my friends, and we're staying at the Fillmore Manor. There's going to be 4 or 5 of us sharing this house that sleeps 10, so it's certainly going to be big enough. Right there in the Village, in the Fillmore's house, and it's less than it would cost us if we all got a hotel room. I was like, wow, thank you, God. Talk about the highest good for all of us. I can't wait to be in that house to feel what it feels like to be. Another little side story. At Unity Village, there's these little paths that are under the buildings, that they walk through to get from one building to another. And often when we do that, because it's like downpour, raining outside or something, we all say, God, Myrtle and Charles walk through here. And because it's so small and narrow, it's almost like you could feel their energy in there. Or when you go into their office, you could feel it. The rest of the place is big and you feel lots of love energy, but to feel the Fillmore's energy is just unbelievable. So anyway, I'm coming up to the summary here. Spiritual will is the power of choice, but it encompasses commitment and willingness. Choice, the choosing power of will, is our ability to desire one possibility among infinite possibilities and then to select it. Desire is natural to our divine nature. It is innate. At the heart of all humanity is a divine discontent that propels us toward more conscious, intentional, spiritual living. Desire often springs from dissatisfaction and discontent, and it searches for the next pleasure, relief, or fulfillment. From infinite possibilities, we choose one that speaks to us. And when we settle into our heart's desire, we find that it is thy will. It is my will and thine will that are together. And then we have commitment. Once resolved to follow one calling, we commit to it. We place me on a path which leads to deliberate and intentional action. Following one path, not flitting from path to path. Unity students, this path is a path of prayer, meditation, study, and service. The commitment says, no excuses, not my will, but yours. And I just want to go back to Jesus. When he said, but yours be done, marked his acquiescence to the higher purpose. So that's where we go, but yours be done. Even though there are things you might not like that you have to do, the higher purpose is what carries us through. The willpower, we then have the willpower. It's not willfulness at that point. And then to remember, not my human preferences, but for true desire, the desire arising out of divine discontent. I will is not a promise for the future, but a self-command for now. I will live in appreciation. I will dance every day. I will be attentive and a loving parent. I will devote 30 minutes to spiritual practice. I will play outdoors 1 time a week. All of these things come from within. They're not willful things. A willing spirit is the epitome of spiritual willpower. Willingness is the antidote to willfulness. Willfulness equates to mental determination required to achieve a goal. However, when for mere personal gain, it becomes a negative attribute and the opposite of allowing. Charles Fillmore said, stubborn, willful, resistant states of mind congest the life flow and create disease. Willingness is a state of allowing, which is our capacity to welcome our experience and receive gifts. Allowing is our ability to cooperate with rather than control and flow of divine ideas. It is a state of agreement. To be centered, unruffled as times pass and light shines on your path ahead. This is the way of the spiritual will. So 4 steps we got. Begin and end each day reminding yourself, I am much more than human. I am much more than human. We are made in the image and likeness of God and heir to all that God is. Step 2, in prayer, align in thought and feeling with divine presence, the Christ of your being. Let all sense of limitation dissolve into the awareness of oneness with God. Allow your human willfulness give way to willingness as new possibilities for good are revealed. Step 3, I wish you happiness. I wish you prosperity. Keep your eye on the prize. Look for what is the best thing that is happening right now. What is the best thing that's happening right now in this room? It's not me talking. It's connection, it's energy, it's feeling good, it's the aha moments, it's intentionality. It's the realization that we are all a sense or a part of a being, something bigger. Get infused with a little spirituality and meditate. Stay the course of living and teaching spiritual principles. Remember your joyful noise homework. Go in and ask yourself if you're supposed to be a part of our expanded choir. And be here at 9 o'clock on Sunday. By the way.
That applies to the regular joyful noise.
That's right. That's right. Be willing to be the light of the world and take intentional action. So let's say this together. I'll say it first. I am willing to be the light of the world and I take intentional action. I am willing to be the light of the world and I take intentional action. Again, I am willing to be the light of the world and I take intentional action. And one last time, I am willing to be the light of the world and I take intentional action. And so it is.